Hey everybody, it's Funny here once again. Hope you're doing well today. I'm rambling about the Hexinverter voltage controlled noise oscillator. It sounds like this. Okay, to contextualize this one on the VCNO, I want to show you there's some jumpers on the back here to get started here. There is a jumper here for the response to the pitch input. It can either be linear or exponential, so we want to move it into exponential because the manual says that that'll give it a more musical response. I don't actually know if this is going to track volt per octave perfectly or not. We're going to find out if it's actually possible to send to melodies in a bit here, but there is that jumper. And then there's also this divider here for the screech output, so you can do it 2 to 8. I'm going to leave it on the default, which is on the left side of 2, but that is some contextual pieces that you need to know. And I'll plug this one back in here and get started. I guess while I'm racking this up here real quick, I just wanted to also give you another piece of context here that I've been making some changes to the recording setup here in hopes of taking the guesswork out of setting the levels, how much I hear in my ears, etc., trying to compress it a little more to keep it flowing at a nice pace, nothing too loud or too quiet, and having control later on of my vocal mix, but we'll just have to see how much that pans out. I do genuinely appreciate feedback on the vocals front, on the levels front, if you have any. I've done 200 episodes of this show now, and it's still a work in progress, as always, kind of like our racks. They're all evolving. So, okay, other piece of context here. This is the original version. I understand that Erica Synths is bringing it back in black. Didn't mean to make a pun, but I do believe the silver version, the red panel thing, is no longer available. Don't quote me on that part of it, but I think they are bringing this back. However, this is the OG one. If they made some changes to how it works, I don't believe that is something that they're doing to them, but if that's the case, just keep in mind this is the OG one that was manufactured by Hexinverter themselves. So what is it? It is a technically digital, although very analog sounding, very analog-y noise source. We have a whole bunch of outputs. We'll first start with the noise, and this was originally labeled as AC and DC on here. I just made another reference, I guess. But the noise output is basically at audio rate. If we listen to that right here, it's going to be nasty, but we're going to do so anyway. Here we go. It's not unlike the usual noise sources that you're used to hearing. However, because this is actually a digital module, it has a full range spectrum of noise, so you can pitch it down. And what's happening here, when you get into that square territory, that video game biddiness in the low end, because this is actually a clocked shift register, meaning it's basically made up of a ton of pulses or squares, it can sound essentially exactly like white noise, but can do other interesting tricks. So where here, basically at the lowest pitch, you get some probability. And I'll say at the noise output here, you can basically do a lot of, with use of the pitch range, the things that happen on the other outputs, like the gate output. There's some interesting things you can do here. Normally, pitch noise on the analog realm is achieved by filtering, basically taking like this wall of white noise and then applying resonance to certain peaks to sort of force it into that noise territory. When it comes to the VCNO, there's actually a clock applied to a linear shift frequency register that is sending less square waves, basically. So for that reason, I also find there's a little bit of timbre change in here. And amplitude goes up a little bit here, at least to my ears. Now the scope doesn't actually show that, but you also have the power to glitch. And I mean both in the modulation and the sound sense. So in these low territories, yes. And we're going to have lots of fun with that today. If anything else today, I hope can be really fun. Now on the gates output, which I can see why they changed it in the original panel from being AC and DC, because you can do audio right here. You're hearing it. But little different flavors. Different jump and amplitude too for it. So let's get on to the different noise outputs. So at the highest rate, we have in the noise output right here. So basically the highest pitch is going to be the same thing on the noise side as it is on the screech side, but you get different little flavors of LFSR in here in the different ranges. So try and turn this down a hit. So when you get into these different ranges though, you get different timbres because they're different settings for the LFSR. So here's the noise output in the middle versus the screech. And it kind of sounds like some sort of horrific demon is dying in your Commodore. And I think probably the best metaphor that the manual uses to compare these two is basically like different wave shape outputs on an oscillator. Like an oscillator would have a triangle output, a square output, a sine wave output, different wave shapes. You can think of that on the same side here. Now, the screech ends up in lower ranges, actually sounding like a little bit less harsh to my ears. But if you're using these at audio rates, just kind of like, I don't know, I think it's sort of a pick your poison sort of thing, just like wave shapes in a way, right? Like, do I want a triangle or a saw wave? Well, do I want screech or do I want noise? Okay, moving over to the Scorch output, unlike the screech output at the highest range, you actually kind of get this filtered out sort of thing. So if we're going to extend that metaphor of different wave shapes, this one sort of will limit things into like a hiss. So unlike different filters applied to analog white noise, it kind of makes the output frequency less often. So this is almost looking like that additive synthesis sort of spectrograph thing where there's just like little peaks. If we pitch this down though, you kind of get into this sort of territory. Let's compare that to the regular noise output. There's the sizzle. And I do hear a little bit of fax machine stuff going on in there. Can you hear it? Screech. And back to the noise. So as you start to turn it down, it'll start to eliminate individual square waves. So you start to see more and more of that space. And it kind of starts to sound more and more crackly because there's more room, right? But as we pitch that down, you can get unique stuff happening in here. Now this isn't CV controllable, but you can do a hair of fine tuning here under the right settings, right? That's where that real fax machine sort of little bit of overtone I'm hearing right there. Hear that? Yeah. That's a sizzle. Here's the tear. Not affected by that sizzle. But, again, just another flavor. And it kind of feels like distortion bias, where it's like breaking up to my ears. In the low and high ends, most of these sound pretty similar. So here's all the way at the top. All the way at the top. With the sizzle cranked up all the way. Screech, noise, they're all pretty similar, but when we get into the lower ranges, we'll just try and give you a little flavor of all these different ones. Here's tear. Tear, they describe it in the manual as sounding like it's broken, like it's tearing itself. To my ears, once the pitch is low enough, all of these kind of sound broken and like they're tearing themselves, but yeah. Different wave shapes, I think, is a really great metaphor that they use. So let's just run through that real quick. Here's sizzle all the way up for that sizzle output, but right now we're on the tear. We're on a tear. So like a pitch sweep, here comes the sizzle. Different flavors of noise. I want that noise plethora. Eventually, here is the screech. This is the nastiest one because it sounds like it's screeching, right? You might think the tear would be the nastiest, but the screech has a little bit of like high-pass resonance, almost sounding thing, which it definitely is not, but different flavors of linear feedback shift registration. Now, we're going to go back to the noise output and use this to try and clock it. So what I actually want to do is, what I am hoping to use this for, really is to try and track volt per octave is the thing I'm most curious about. Will it actually work? I genuinely have no idea. So let's take the output of our low-pass gate and run this through that. Now, is this going to sound horrible? Probably. Will it track volt per octave is my question. I love my noise, and I love running noise sources through that low-pass gate. If we excite that here, sounds like a snare because we got noise. Pitch it down a little bit. Get into video game territory, which I love. What happens now, though, I'll bring this up to 64 steps. We'll do 4 on the floor, just so it's all super apparent. If I pitch some of these up, does it track it in a way that's meaningful? We're going to find out. Meaningful is probably not the right word, is usable. In comes our CV into the pitch knob. Now, it has an attenuverter, so you can have it subtract or add voltage to the pitch. So I think we want to add, right? Here, let's generate a sequence for fun. Let's see how this sounds. So that's the noise output. Let's try this group. Yeah. That's what I was after, the melody. Here we go. And yeah, it's definitely getting into square wave video game territory. Let's go pitch it up. That way you can sort of set a bottom line. I would hate to try and tune this, but you want interesting timbres. Let's go over to the sizzle output. I'll add a little bit of resonance, saturation. Yeah. So this is as an audio source. I still feel like the screech is the best for audio. Do less resonance, more open. Oh, that makes for great drums. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, maybe wouldn't want to tune that to a different bass line, but yeah. Let's go over the noise output. Different timbre. I'm doing some filtering on the low pass gate side for sure. Or else it's just like a whole wall of noise. But I really like said wall of noise through that. Oh. Yes. Sizzle. And yeah, the low pass gate is doing a lot of the tone here, but very, very cool. What if we just don't send it any CV? What I wanted to try as well, we can clock this and use it for modulation purposes. So instead of what I was doing before, let's patch this into an oscillator. I can track volt per octave on the Rossi. So that can go into the same low pass gate. Sorry, I know it's not on the camera at the moment, but I hope that's okay for y'all. So here is the voice going in. And we're going to send clock into the clock input here and use it for random noise sources. So clock's going in, you see the LEDs on the VCNO are blinking, and now if we take a random gates output, we can randomly trigger. And then I believe in this case, the pitch will increase or decrease the probability. Sorry. Let's scope the gates output here. And if we try different outputs here, when you're clocking it, interesting. Sizzle output. So it does provide different flavors of random modulation, which is actually really cool to use. And in the case of the sizzle output, the sizzle knob or the pitch change the probability? I don't know. I can't tell. Let's do noise output now. So I think to play us out, I'm going to use VCNO as hats. I'll use the noise output to give us some sound. Honestly, I really love my unique noise sources. Just like the Interstellar Radio voltage-controlled noise oscillator offers something really interesting and unique in the world of noise, but also adding some quality of life features, some special outputs like the screech and stuff. Awesome for modulation, awesome for audio as well. So yeah, I think I'm going to try and make some hats out of this to play us out. So I'm tafony. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that crap that YouTube's always on my case about not promoting to you, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.